Fort Knox is one of the places, the physical places in the United States where we're told our gold is stored. Half, maybe, supposedly, of our reserves, or some big chunk.
It's. I want to say, there's some there. There's some in Denver. There's some at West Point.
Right,
I don't
spread
remember
around.
the
But Fort Knox is the famous one.
Yep.
And, members of Congress, almost all of them with the last name Paul, have been calling for an audit of Fort Knox for, just decades. And if you really press, it doesn't look like Fort Knox has been actually audited for close to 100 years, since the 30s. I think that's right. I stand open to correction. They said it was audited in the 70s, but it wasn't actually audited. It was like some of it was audited. Why is it so hard with a federal workforce, including contractors of like 10 million people, to just like go through the contents of the vaults and weigh them and make sure that they're not gold-plated titanium and make sure they're all there and then figure out who owns them? Like, why is that so hard? We're told, that's too complicated. Really?
No, I don't think it's anything to do, to your point. It's not complicated at all. I think it comes down to policy and that gold is a geopolitical metal. And if you go back to, again, declassified documents and of conversations and memos around a lot in the 70s, and you'll see some familiar names there, Volcker, Kissinger, Weintraub, some of those types of names. The U.S. in the 60s was losing a lot of gold, right? The system was essentially dollar is pegged to gold, $35 an ounce. Everything else is tied to the dollar. And it started becoming clear as we got deeper and deeper in Vietnam and guns and butter with LBJ that we didn't have the gold to cover our debt offshore at $35 an ounce.
And were countries trying to redeem their...
They were. Yeah, we went from, I want to say after World War II, we had 18,000 tons of gold, official gold. And by the time we got to call it 71, we were down to the 8,100 we have today. And that's where...
No way.
So we shipped out about 10,000 tons of gold to satisfy these deficits. As
actual
the system
physical gold?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, here are my dollars, send me my bars?
Yeah, if I recall the story correctly, the French sent warships into New York to pick it up. Oh, yeah.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And we were sending, if I recall correctly, we were sending an airplane a month to Riyadh with bullion, right, to settle gold deficits as we had agreed to.
By the way, Saudi, one of the richest countries per capita in the world, is not even in the top 10 for gold holdings.
Saudi owns so much gold. It's just not on the official list.
Sorry, I'm making the same point again, which is the numbers are lies.
Right. So, and I think the reason why the numbers are lies is why there's not great clarity, right? Why they manage the optics and the way they're clearly managing the optics is, you can go back, once we closed the gold window in 71, Nixon said, hey, no more gold, the dollar's now free floating. And you can read from these declassified documents that the U.S. very much had an interest in getting gold out of the system. We didn't want, because there was one of the declassified documents in question. There was a proposal that was afoot in 73, 74 by the Europeans to revalue their gold to settle oil deficits, right? Because Europe doesn't have a whole lot of oil. They were importing a bunch of oil. Oil had gone up a bunch in price, so they had a bunch of oil deficits. They were looking to basically revalue gold and then settle deficits with OPEC in gold. And the Americans in question, Kissinger, Weintraub, Volcker, said this isn't in our interest. This is not what we want. We want the Saudis not getting gold. We want them getting treasury bonds. And so, right, the famous Bill Simon deal. And so I think I can't
believe they took that deal.
Yeah, I think it might have been a gold or the lead type of deal at that point in time. We'll give you not only, you take the gold, you take the lead, and the gold is, we'll provide you protection, we'll provide you weapons, we'll let you access to our markets. And if you don't do it, we're going to regime change you. And oh, by the way, we'll give you maybe a sweetener on your, I think it's very possible they were getting higher than market interest rates on the treasury bonds for decades as part of that deal. Who knows? But
what do you mean, who knows?
It's not something that's ever been disclosed. But
well, how can we give country specific interest rates on treasuries?
I think I have heard credible rumblings from people that were around then that part of that deal may have been not just countries, just Saudi may have gotten a sweeter deal than other countries.
How can that not be disclosed?
That's how you get a $10,000 wrench at Department of Defense. Wrenches don't cost $10,000. It's right. move stuff around a little.
This is why they're always encouraging us to get mad at each other about race and the tranny stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, because the big things are just not even.
Well, in fairness, I think, it's always about power and control, right? This is about control of the system. This was the dollar system.
Yes.
Clearly, 71 was a default in the gold. And so we were trying to sort of get around this. And so I think sort of the original sin, or again, origin story of the refusal of wanting to even talk about, or what is an audit, what is as it relates to audits of Fort Knox, is once we close that gold window, I think that generation of leadership, 70s, 80s, and didn't want to talk about gold, and going in to audit it brings gold back up and brings it back up that, hey, we defaulted on our gold clauses. Like twice in the past 80 years, by the way, FDR defaulted on gold clauses too, to the domestic Americans. So I think the original origin story was about this reticence about, is the gold there? Has it been audited? What is an audit? Has it been fully audited? Has it been fully assayed? All of the things you would think are pretty easy to do. I think go back to that policy of petrodollar. We don't want gold back in the system. The Europeans do. We don't. This is the deal. We threw our weight around in the 70s, and sending people into Fort Knox to show them we have the gold doesn't help us remove gold from the system. And ultimately, why do we want to remove gold from the system? Control, and it's easier to run deficits without tears.
Sure, because gold is an anchor in reality.
Correct.
So there's been a lot of talk about changes to the U.S. tax code, especially changes that affect cryptocurrency investing. What are those changes? Well, what if there was already a way to invest in the market with tax advantages? Well, iTrust Capital makes that possible. iTrust Capital is a software platform that lets you invest in crypto using a self-directed IRA. That means with a traditional IRA, taxes are deferred, and with a Roth IRA, you won't have to pay taxes on your crypto gains, just like a retirement account. On top of that, the crypto market never closes, so you can buy or sell 24/7 in case you stay up late. iTrust Capital makes investing easy, safe, and accessible. You don't have to be an expert. Their website has easy-to-understand articles, videos, and if you ever need help, you can speak with an actual person in the United States, because the whole thing is based in the United States, the whole company. So if you're looking to add crypto to your retirement portfolio, sign up today at itrustcapital.com/Tucker and use a promo code Tucker for a $100 funding bonus. What's so interesting, boy, you're teaching me a lot. Thank you. They don't want to talk about gold, and they haven't since the default of 71, which is never described, by the way, as a default.
And it was.
Of course, right. You're not making good on your promise. It's a default.
It's a default.
And they don't want to talk about gold. The U.S. government doesn't want to talk about gold. Ever since then, which is my whole lifetime, people who are interested in gold have been derided as, quote, gold bugs. And it just occurred to me, it's one of those phrases that's so devastatingly effective. You're a nutcase. Yeah. You're buggy. Yeah. You're crazy. Right. Bug house. Of course. Mental patient. And it reminds me so much of the term conspiracy theorist. So CIA, possibly with the help of a foreign government, murders the president of the United States. And it's super obvious that happened in 1963, and nobody believes the Warren Commission, and it's like it doesn't make any sense, actually. And so they start calling anyone who raises questions about it a conspiracy theorist. And that was a phrase that was devised by the intel community to discredit people who asked uncomfortable questions. And you sort of have to wonder if the phrase gold bug, is just occurring to me now, isn't a species of that, right?
It's entirely
Shut
possible.
Shut up, gold bug.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
And even to this day, people who, and I know some of them, who are interested in gold and sort of follow, its global movements and buy gold, physical gold, non-abstract gold, they're embarrassed of it.
Oh yeah, I
mean, there's like a social sanction to even talking about gold.
Oh, it's fascinating. I've been working in investment research for 30 years, and at high levels at major institutions around the U.S., around the world, doing investment research for major money managers. And it's fascinating what you say, because there is always, not amongst all of them, but amongst a lot of investment professionals, they watch gold. They watch it more than you would think, more than the average American would think. They own it, but there is that stigma where it's sort of hey, you see gold? It is. There is a stigma is too strong a word, but there's a
kind of
a little bit.
I was with one of the richest people in the world the other day, a very famous investor. I'm sure you know him, wonderful guy. And somebody said to me, he buys gold. And I said to him off camera, do you buy gold? And he's like, yeah, among other things.
Sure.
I said, do you buy a lot of gold? Yeah, I buy a lot of gold. But he clearly just didn't want to. It's even to someone, open-minded, brilliant person, it's not something that people talk about in public. It's almost like admitting you have some kind of weird fetish or something. I dress up in a chicken costume. I don't want to talk about it, but you know what I mean?
Well, it's fascinating, right? Because it is, I think it goes back to that original point of why those movements are shrouded in secrecy, which is gold on some level is a hedge or an insurance policy against the existing system as it has been allowed to evolve over the last 50 years. And so once you get to a certain level of wealth, power, influence within that system, you clearly understand the Achilles heels and the risks and how that system will at some point, mathematically certainty, it could be next week, it could be 50 years from now, will at some point need to be reset in some fashion. You understand that. And it is not in your interest, socially, financially, etc., to advocate or advertise that you are hedging or insuring against the collapse of that system.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.